Welcome back, everybody. Christmas is over, which means playoff football is only 2 weeks away. You're listening to the You Like That Feels Great Baby podcast with Erik Stenholm and Joey Moore. We're happy to be back. A little bit of a hiatus. We're a couple days later than usual, but, had to celebrate for the holidays. We'll get into that in a bit. But, Joey, we got to start with obviously the biggest news of the week. The Niners flop on Monday Night Football on Christmas night. Obviously, it was tough for you, but in talking with you during the game and before the podcast, obviously you're upset, but you're still saying stay the course after that absolutely awful victory or loss on Monday Night Football against the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, I guess time heals all wounds. Yeah, because ruined my Christmas. But yeah, I guess, watching some of the game again and just kind of, you could say box score watching, I guess just general feel is just, even during the game, I felt so positive after the first half. We not only lost a turnover battle in the first half, 3-0, and just horrible. Like the first pick was on par with some of Purdy's worst picks this year, and he's had a few where you're just like, huh? What was that? I'm not going to say he got completely unlucky on the tipped ones. You have 3 tipped passes that go for picks. You're not maybe putting the ball where it's supposed to go. I know, towards the end of the game, the Niners were playing with backup offensive linemen everywhere and stuff. But my biggest concern with him specifically is I thought he looked scared to throw the ball especially after the 4th pick. And the picks themselves, I don't think were the worst I've ever seen, although they were bad. But it was just does this shake his confidence? Because clearly, it was a complete meltdown on national television. But
do you think the stinger affected him during this game? The stinger from the previous game, and then he re-aggravated it? Or do you think it was something that happened late in the game?
No, I thought he got a second stinger, later in the game. But I was trying to find it because I saw it earlier. But I think the Niners had 260 yards of offense in the first half. The first couple drives, well, especially the first one, it was boop, boop to Kittle. It was and then just did not see Kyle Hamilton at all. And terrible pick. But after that, I thought it was fine. The moving up and down the ball, they were running the ball. I know they kind of gave up the run, which I didn't understand. I didn't understand why we were throwing so much against the number 1 rated pass defense in the league. And then running the ball, I thought we just kind of gave up on it. But Purdy, I'm fully confident he can bounce back because, first off, this week Washington's terrible. But big one after that against the Rams. That could be for the 1 seed for us and them to make the playoffs. So that's a big one. But bigger concern for me, for him offensively, is just the offensive line, their play number 1 and their health number 2. It's starting to really affect us.
What's the update on Williams? Because the injury during the game,
I think he practiced today.
Yeah, it didn't look too bad, but it was the other offensive linemen that, those looked like significant. You were down to your 3rd string. What was it? Right tackle in that game. So yeah, that was really tough to watch. Obviously everybody's going to talk about the 4 picks and Purdy going from minus 200 in the MVP to 15-1, just falling off the board. I think that's a little harsh. Obviously, I would say 2 of the 4 were just horrendous throws, and the other 2 were tipped and not, put in the perfect spot, but you can't give him too much flack for it. Obviously, he had a stinger in week 15 and then again in this game. So there's a lot to look at there. I thought they ran the ball well. I agree with you that I don't understand why, other than them trailing late in the game, they didn't just stick with the run a little bit more, because McCaffrey looked great as he always does. Defense, as you pointed out the week prior when I wanted to bet on the Niners -6, you said defenses in the NFC against Lamar, not a good idea. And they did give up 33. So that's another thing you probably.
But I thought they played not that terrible. I just think Purdy was throwing picks on his own 10 and 20 and until Lamar had a long run in the end of the second or the first half that got them the field goal. He only had 6 yards of rushing. So I was doing a decent job there. And then he had a 30-yard run, which is going to happen. You just can't have him throw for 250 or something and then run for $150.
Yeah.
I thought they did okay against the run to begin with, but just Purdy was just putting them in terrible situations. And then by the end of the game, we just wore down.
So looking forward to next week, your 12-point favorites on the road at Washington. It opened 13.5, and then obviously after the 4-pick game, it moved a little bit towards Washington. But you're saying stay the course. I think most Niners fans agree. All you have to do is win your last 2 games, and you're the 1 seed. This is as good a spot as you can get, is Washington after a very tough loss. So hopefully a soft landing there. No worries going into that game, but I think it doesn't feel like a trap game just because of how bad Washington is. Maybe if Howell was healthy and the offensive line for Washington was healthy, it could be a trap game, but it's going to be Brissett. That team is decimated. They're definitely not playing hard for Ron Rivera, I tell you that. So looks like a good soft landing spot for the Niners next week before the big one in Week 18 against the Rams, which may have a huge effect on the Vikings. The Vikings now no longer control their own destiny to make the playoffs. Thanks to that devastating loss against the Lions. The Rams won, unfortunately, and the Seahawks won. So at this point, the Vikings need 2 wins and then a loss by either of the other 2 teams ahead of them, the Rams or the Seahawks. So Vikings fans are rooting this week for the Rams to lose and Seahawks to lose, and then the same next week when the Rams play the Niners. So it's a tough spot. Terrible game on Saturday. I really wanted the Vikings to be better. I really wanted Mullins to be better. Yes, he threw for 411 yards, but 4 turnovers, including one at the end that basically ended his chances of ever starting an NFL game again. He was benched for Jaren Hall, who's going to start this upcoming week against Green Bay on Sunday Night Football. I know you saw that game. I know you had a lot of jokes about Mullins as he was your quarterback in your last shitty era. Bad memories, right? Watching him throw the ball to the other team.
I don't know. He threw for 411 yards. I mean, he can do something right. And the problem is he threw 4 picks and he probably could have threw 5 or 6.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's a tough loss. I mean, played a really good Detroit team down to the wire. Yeah, I mean, I was doing my little skull chance at home. I was rooting for the Vikings. But yeah, I mean, as the Niners found out, you can't turn the ball over. You can't throw 4 picks.
Yeah,
hard to win. But yeah,
Jefferson came back with 141 yards, which was huge. It's the first time really since like week 7 that he's been, the best player on the field. And when you watch him and Addison together, it looks like Addison will be okay for next week. You're like, God, I just wish Cousins could have stayed healthy because the ceiling was really high. And now on top of everything else, we have to deal with TJ Hawkinson tore his MCL and ACL, which is devastating. So we'll see if he's ready for next year, given how late in the year that injury happened. And then you had DJ Wanham, who's had an awesome season as our second pass rusher with 8.5 sacks. He blew out his quad, so he's out for the year. So 2-point favorites on Sunday Night Football against Green Bay, a must-win game for both teams. If you lose, you're eliminated. If you win, you got a shot in Week 18. So looking at that one, obviously, Green Bay has been on a bit of a slide. At one point, they had gotten up to, I believe they were 6-5, and then since then they've really kind of fallen off the wagon. They did win barely last week against Carolina. I think Jaren Hall is the right choice to start this game, frankly. Nick Mullins, not popular among Vikings fans. Nobody's really calling for Dobbs after his last 2 games. Hall was originally going to be the guy that was going to replace Cousins when we go all the way back to when he tore his Achilles against Green Bay in Week 8. And the team said, Jaren Hall is our guy. And then he got concussed, 5 minutes into the game. And frankly, I thought he looked awesome on the one drive before he got hurt, and he looked very mobile. So hopefully we see something good from him on Sunday Night Football. Going into that game, we'll already know what will have happened with the Seahawks and the Rams. So if one of those teams slipped up, either Seattle or the Rams, going into that game, it'll be like, hey, we now control our own destiny. If we win this game and then win again next week, we are in. So hopefully we get to that point with at least a chance. That's all we can ask for in a season where we lost 2 different quarterbacks to season-ending injuries and then played another 3 absolute bums in there to try to get into the playoffs. Let's talk a little bit about Thursday Night Football. This game has just gone final. Joe Flacco, I mean, what more can you say? I was watching the highlights of this game earlier. The dude is elite. Like, he's throwing just freaking missiles around the field. Yes, he had that one difficult pick six play where the ball got batted at the line. But other than that, I mean, this guy has just been an absolute beast. They just crushed that vaunted Jets defense today. Browns are looking good. That was a wild one.
I think they're really good. Joe Flacco, like, clearly was not sitting on his couch eating Fritos when he wasn't on a team. They look like they're going to be a really tough out. Still have a shot at the division, I guess, if Baltimore loses their last two games, but we'll see.
Cleveland and Detroit both have 11 wins right now. What world are we living in? A Browns-Lions Super Bowl isn't the craziest thing that could happen this year. Like, how wild is that? Like, that's insane.
As crazy it is, I think it'd be crazier if Detroit made it.
Yes, given the path in the NFC for sure.
I think Cleveland could beat anybody. It's
the same as the 2012 Ravens, right? It's Flacco throws the deep ball and the
they're making all the comparisons to Philly with Nick Foles.
Mm-hmm.
But they're great on the offensive and defensive lines. Their back end on defense is really good. Like,
they got.
I don't know what the odds are right now. I don't know what the odds are right now, but I mean, you could look at Kevin Stefanski as a serious Coach of the Year candidate.
Yeah, that would be his second time winning that. He won it in 2020 as well.
Yeah. I'm watching the post game now. They clinched. They're in. Which is crazy because they were like, they lost. It reminds me like the Niners last year with Purdy, that they're like, oh, they're on their third string quarterback. And I'm like, no, better way to look at it is the best quarterback they have is playing right now. I don't care what string he was on. Like, Joe Flacco is better than Deshaun Watson right now. And Joe Flacco is better than whoever they were back, DTR and PJ Walker. And he's better than all of them. So this is their fourth guy off the couch, but like they upgraded.
Yes.
Nick Chubb out is tough, and I think they've lost a couple like other offensive line. I think for at least for a while, if not the entire season. I forget which ones, but they're good.
They're 11-5. They're going to be the 5 seed. We'll lay it out later that they may actually have a path here, which is insane to say after they lost Watson for the year. Let's get into next week's slate. We'll start with the Saturday game. This one's a big one. Detroit at Dallas. Dallas favored by 5.5. Dallas with that loss at Miami, coupled with the Eagles' win against the Giants, it's basically Dallas has thrown another NFC East title down the drain. Philly plays Arizona and the Giants to finish the season. So barring a shocking loss by the Eagles in one of their final 2 games, looks like Philly's going to be either that 2 seed or 3 seed. It's a big game for Detroit if they want to have home field advantage in the second round. This will be a good one. If I had to bet on this one, I probably lean Dallas just because of how good they are at home. They're obviously an average team on the road and a world beater at home. Looking at this game, given Detroit's already clinched the division and Dallas is still fighting for the division, how do you handicap this one?
I like Dallas. They are a monster at home, and I think Detroit is good, but they're not the same on the road. Also, kind of like Dallas. I think it'd be a very high scoring game, but I expect Dallas to pull it out at home. Because they're still fighting for the division, and we kind of watched it on Christmas. But like Eagles' last 2 games, like they should win, but are they? Like, I mean,
very
down to the wire against the Giants. Whatever string quarterback Tyrod is at this point, he was there and then benched, and now he's back. And I thought Arizona could have been a sneaky upset pick, like against the Niners.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I'd be rooting for Arizona this week, but I mean, if you're Dallas, I mean, you have to play like you're still in it. And
they play before the Eagles play, so if they win this one,
they wouldn't put pressure on Philly. I know that's Philly's last home game, I think. But maybe Kyler Murray can run around a bit, and who knows? But
yeah, Dallas has got to go pedal to the metal there, especially given that they play the day before. So they have to make a statement and tell Philly, hey, you got to control your own destiny here because we ain't going away. But it is tough for Cowboys fans to see that field goal go through the uprights for Miami and basically take away any chance they had at winning the division without a giant Philly slip up. The best game by far of the weekend is Miami at Baltimore. This game is to decide the 1 seed. Baltimore's favored by 3. I definitely lean Baltimore in this one just because we just saw them against the Niners. Yes, there was a big turnover differential, but Baltimore against good teams, they play really well. I mean, they absolutely killed Detroit and Seattle. They fought hard to win against the Rams and showed a lot of character. They beat the crap out of the Niners, albeit aided by turnovers. But I think the Baltimore team is a really good team. I think Miami's best win of the season came last week against Dallas, and they barely squeaked by. And Dallas is not a great team on the road. So no really truly impressive wins for Miami to this point, and Baltimore has a bunch. Baltimore, by the way, they beat Cleveland 28-3 earlier in the season, and that looks better and better by the week. So when you look at this one, yes, obviously it's the game of the weekend, but one note that I had here is if somehow Miami wins this game, Tua has to go into that conversation of being an elite quarterback. You're not the 1 seed in the AFC and throwing for 4,000 yards and 35 touchdowns, and you're not elite. So this is a big one for Tua.
I think what's funny is if that happens, I don't know. I don't know why. Part of me because I think Miami gets rolled. Part of that is just because I just watched the Ravens throttle my Niners, but like the Ravens are better than I thought. I mean, I thought I was low on them. I know coming into the season just because they kind of like the Niners, they never stay healthy. I just never thought Lamar would play this many games. But clearly, if he does, I mean, at this point, he's going to win his second MVP. The Ravens are. They don't have there's no TJ Watt, there's no Myles Garrett, but they have pass rushers everywhere. They're sound everywhere. What I learned watching them against the Niners, they're very much positionless on defense. And I know that looked like that made it hard on the Niners because usually you could scheme stuff open and there's every team usually in this era of the NFL has a slow middle linebacker or just guy who can't run on the out something but Baltimore's fast everywhere. Their corners tackle, they're physical, they hit hard. And that seems to be Miami's kryptonite. I mean, every time they play a big game, whether it's Buffalo or Kansas City, they just
make plays.
They look different. Now I think Jalen Waddle's out too.
Hill's not at 100%. The Niner game, I really thought Roquan Smith and Kyle Hamilton were they jumped off the field. That is such a solid team. When you think of the Ravens, you think of Lamar and you think of ground and pound, but you don't really think of individual defensive players. And after watching that game, I was I knew Baltimore had a good unit, but they got dudes there. Roquan Smith was awesome in that game, and so was Kyle Hamilton. So my opinion of Baltimore hasn't changed all year. I said they would win the division before the year. I still think they're by far the best team in the AFC. We'll see how it goes. I lean Baltimore there. Let's look at a couple other games. I really want to bet Tampa Bay -2.5. They're at home against New Orleans in the winner-take-all NFC South game. I think we both like Tampa Bay here, right? Baker's been really good recently. I don't have any trust in Derek Carr.
That's winner-take-all? Really? Is it? I guess it is.
Yeah, New Orleans is 7-8. Tampa Bay's 8-7. Tampa Bay won the first matchup in New Orleans, so if Tampa Bay wins, they clinch the division. If New Orleans wins, then they.
I don't know why. I just think Tampa is way better than New Orleans, so I didn't think it was that close. But yeah, I think Tampa. Could be a next week take, but Dallas better continue to play well. That's all I gotta say because the Baker's boys are cooking.
Baker's stats are unbelievable. I mean, he's been.
I don't know what he's coming back from. Maybe just being ass. But he might win comeback player of the year.
I looked at the odds for that the other day. So at the beginning of the season, DeMar Hamlin was -5,000. Basically, he has to do is
I really hope they
snap.
don't
That was before the season, though.
You can't almost die and then be active. Your resume for being comeback of the year just can't be you were active.
Yeah. which that has dropped week after week after week. So right now he's minus 200 and Flacco is plus 150. And then I don't think Baker is
I forgot
on the
about
list, but
Flacco.
Flacco
Yeah,
all of a sudden is like right at the top. So that's been really interesting to follow because
he
Hamlin, I
literally
believe he's
came
only
back.
played 2
Like, he
snaps
wasn't.
on defense.
Oh, really? It's that low?
He's played a bunch of special team snaps, but I think he's played 2 or 3 snaps on defense. So that was only because of injury. So that's been pretty wild.
Yeah,
That's a
Baker.
fun one to watch. Tampa Bay, we both like them, right? Tampa Bay minus 2.5 at home against New Orleans. Carr's been, just captain check down for the last few weeks. I wanted to talk about New England at Buffalo minus 12. Buffalo all of a sudden has a real shot at the 2 seed, so they're going to win this game. They're pissed at New England after losing that one last time. I think they're going to roll over New England. And if Baltimore holds serve,
crazy. Yeah, you're
all
right.
of a sudden,
Buffalo's like going to go from a tire fire to the 2 seed.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? And I think they're going to roll in this game. And I think if they play at Miami
against the Patriots, they're going
to. That is a crazy scenario.
Yeah, I think that's a likely scenario. I mean, you really think about it, like, I don't expect Miami to beat Baltimore, and I expect Buffalo to beat New England, although they didn't earlier this year.
And if both of those happen, they will definitely flex.
They will. Miami's going to go there with like here comes the doom. And that would be in Buffalo, right?
No, it's in Miami. Buffalo stomped Miami in Buffalo earlier in the year.
I remember they stomped them, but I thought that was in Miami. Yeah, I don't care where it is. Play it on the moon. Buffalo's gonna kill them.
So that's next week, and I think
that would be Sunday night football.
That would be the Sunday night game, and that's a great one. That would be really good. Obviously, Buffalo fans will be way more hyped up
because it impacts no other team, right?
Right. It would basically be who's the 2 seed and who's the 5.
It doesn't they try. I know they try and make it fair to where if a team loses, the team that plays later could just rest guys.
Mm-hmm.
I know they try and schedule it that way so that doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
But if that's the case, then that game only because the winner would be the 2 seed essentially, and the loser would be the 5. There's no other. I don't think there's any other, unless maybe Cleveland might be the 5.
Maybe it could move them from 5 to 6 or something. There's no permutation where if Miami loses and Buffalo wins this week, it isn't that on Sunday Night Football next week. I was looking at that slate, and there's no way that.
I thought Niners-Rams could have been a choice, but not if it's Buffalo-Miami for the division.
Yeah, that'll be a great one. Atlanta at Chicago. Chicago's favored by 3 at home. The Bears have been better at late. I can't believe that this game is Chicago minus 3. Chicago is eliminated from playoff contention. Atlanta, I guess they're still technically alive. They would have to win out and get a ton of help. Surprised with Heineke in there that it's still minus 3 for Chicago. That leads me to believe that Vegas is saying, hey, Fields is actually kind of good. Eberflus is actually kind of good. Do you think
their defense has actually been?
Do you think they both come back? Because that's what I've been hearing recently is that they're going to probably, trade down, take a guy like Marvin Harrison Jr. And stick with what they have, which that would be shocking to me. But that's what I've been hearing recently.
It's a really good question because I was thinking you could. I was leaning keep Eberflus and then get a quarterback, but if you really do invest that much in a quarterback, I would prefer an offensive coach.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of restart that clock, especially the salary. Because what are you going to do? Pay Justin Fields? How much? I don't know how that works. So it restarts everything with coach, head coach, and quarterback. But I've seen just listening to people and just Eberflus is as a defensive guy has turned especially when after they got Sweat.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they've I think they're number 1 in the league against the run or something. And I mean, they're playing well and Fields is improving. I'm not going to say he's just getting worse and worse. I think he's getting better, but I still don't think he's the answer. And it's just you never can plan on drafting number 1. It's just a loser's mentality. So if you have the opportunity, you really have to take it if you believe in a guy. Now, if you don't, if you think all these guys are just not the guy you want or overrated, whatever it is, then don't. but
they've been handed
but the
this
number one
golden
pick,
goose.
they're going to have whoever they want.
Right.
So if they're going to, in order for them to not take one, they'd have to hate all of them.
Right.
Which, I mean, there's so many of them. I mean, whether it's my other hot take is I don't think Caleb Williams is going to be the first quarterback.
Just because of the off-field stuff.
I don't think it's off field. I just think like I don't like the consensus number one thing. Like, just I don't know. It kind of scares me. Like, look at Trevor. Like, I think teams are really going to go into like, are you actually like as good as people have been saying you are? Like, I know Lincoln Riley and his defenses everywhere he's been have been just complete joke, but I don't know. I don't know. I don't like
if he's somewhere in between the last two Lincoln Riley quarterbacks, Baker and Kyler, is that worthy of a number one overall pick?
Well, that's part of it. People are going to be like no different than like people thinking CJ Stroud's going to be just ass. Like, look at every Ohio State quarterback we've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
Like, especially in recent memory. Like, people are going to go Lincoln Riley. Like, cool. Like, Kyler's super talented, but obviously maybe not some of the studying habits. Baker, I got to give him a lot of credit. He's played way better than I ever thought he would, but still, like, would you want to have Baker number one? No, thank you. Like, I'd want somebody like, Peyton Manning potential, or like, I mean, that's a bit extreme, but like
Andrew
clearly
Luck,
has a chance to be consistently top 10 at the very worst, and preferably top 5. And you just, you have to think Caleb Williams. Do you think Caleb or any of these guys, especially if you're picking one, do you think that they're as good as Mahomes, Allen, Burrow? Like, if not, you're wasting your money.
Yeah.
Because then you have to pay a guy like, a guy like Tua, a guy like Dak, like, I mean, like 55, 60 million. And then you're paying above average players elite money, and it's just awful. Ruined your whole team.
Just such a tough decision for Chicago. Apparently what's been circulating is that the GM there really wants to go with another year of both of those guys. So as a Vikings fan, I'm actually kind of cool with that. Like, you've been handed this.
Doesn't that say all you need to know?
Yes. They were handed
the other
golden
teams in
goose.
your division hope they come back.
Yeah. You should probably move on from both. So that's all I got to say. So there's an elimination game between the Raiders and Indy. Whichever team loses that game
Antonio Pierce
is eliminated. Huge win for the Raiders at the Chiefs last week.
Ass.
Yeah, and it was just one of those statement games. Like, Antonio Pierce wants that job. I don't think they're going to make the Rich Bisaccia mistake again. I think they're going to hire him as the full-time coach. That team really wants to play for him. Big game here at Indy. I've picked Indy the last 2 weeks. I am not picking them again. They've absolutely bit me in the ass. They've actually been our only losing pick each of the last 2 weeks. We've been 8-1-1 the last 2 weeks, and or 7-2-1, and the 2 losses were both picking Indy. So no more picking them. I want to talk about Carolina at Jacksonville. Jacksonville's favored by 6. It's a must-win for them to keep their season alive, to keep the pace there in the AFC South. Carolina is awful. We've seen that the whole year. Jacksonville's only favored by 6. This is a game Trevor's got to win. I lean Jacksonville here. Interested in if you want to talk me off of that.
I can't talk you off of it, but it's a humongous game for Trevor Lawrence. It's a
and they're laying the groundwork for everything right now, saying he has a sprained AC joint. He's still recovering from concussion symptoms. It's like, man, they're really making a lot of excuses for his poor play the last few weeks.
I mean, they're just not very good right now. And Carolina's got nothing to lose. Yeah, I mean, Jacksonville has to win. I don't have a good reason for them to win other than Carolina's awful.
And then Tennessee plays Houston. Houston's favored by 3. CJ Stroud is back. The division is there to play for our guy D'Amico, and so that's pretty cool. I lean Houston there big time. I can't believe they're only favored by 3 at home against Tennessee, who's going to be starting Tannehill with Levis out for the season. So crazy times in the South with those 3 games. Vegas at Indy, Carolina at Jacksonville, and Tennessee at Houston. That might decide the division right there. However those go, that will decide what we're looking at Week 18. There could also be a Week 18 winner takes all for the AFC South, but that ain't going to be the Sunday night game. I tell you that. Big.
It was last year, wasn't it? If I remember correctly, Tennessee, Jacksonville.
And do you remember who started for Tennessee?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't Sunday. It was that
Saturday.
was like the Saturday night ESPN.
Do you remember who started for Tennessee in that game?
Yeah, it was Dobbs.
It was Josh Dobbs. Unbelievable. What a whirlwind for that guy. And now he's riding the pine as our third string quarterback. Very strange year. This is the biggest one for the Vikings other than their game is Rams -5.5 at the Giants. All the other NFC wildcard contenders, whether it's the Vikings, the Saints, the Falcons, the Packers, we all need the Rams to lose this one for there to be a direct path to the playoffs. I really want the Giants to win this game, but you've been saying for the last 6 weeks, really, the Rams are the team nobody wants to face in the playoffs.
Nope. Best thing I could say about the Rams is they damn near beat Baltimore in Baltimore. I think that's their only loss like the last 6 or 7 weeks or something. They're red hot. In
they
my
looked
opinion,
great on Thursday night against the Saints.
In my opinion, they're the second best team in the NFC. I think they're better than Philly. I think they're better than Dallas.
Wow.
Right now. I mean, everyone. I mean, you cannot
just because of the quarterback play?
I think the part of that is, I mean, man, I was looking at it. People were just finding every reason, before he threw 4 picks.
Mm-hmm.
People are finding every reason to not vote for Purdy or like somebody else. And I got Lamar and stuff, but I was like, let's really look at it. You look at Matthew Stafford's numbers,
Mm-hmm.
I think his last like month and a half, he's like 14-1 touchdown interceptions.
Mm-hmm.
He's healthy. Kyron Williams might also be the second best running back in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
Like Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua, which I'm not going to call him Puka Doncic anymore because he's his own name now. He's that good.
He's going to have like 1,400 yards.
And Aaron Donald and a bunch of guys no one's ever heard of are playing really well. Yeah, that's
a dangerous ass team.
The Niners are going to have to. I don't care if they've already clinched the 1 seed. I guess there's an outside chance they clinch the 1 seed this week if Dallas beats Detroit, which I think happens. But they also need Philly to lose to Arizona, which I hope, but I don't think so.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to have to beat the Rams to get the 1 seed, but they might want to beat the Rams to like maybe potentially keep them out of the playoffs.
Right. And all the NFC teams are looking at that Week 18 game. First of all, thank you, Baltimore, for beating the Niners, because now the Niners will have to play hard in Week 18.
Hopefully not.
Great.
Hopefully Arizona wins. And we just rest everybody.
But, I mean, if you're playing balls to the wall there, that's going to be a really tough game in Santa Clara for the Rams.
Until the Ravens knocked our socks off, I think the closest game that we've had – no, because we lost the game. But I'd say the closest win we had was the Rams game.
Right.
Week 2 in LA.
Yeah. Which
it was actually a 10-point game, but Sean McVay decided to kick a field goal with like a couple seconds left. Could have just went for it.
Went for the cover.
But you know what? I thought about this. I want to give him credit. Someone asked him about it, like, why was that? Because it was like an absolute just dick of a backdoor cover.
Mm-hmm.
But he said like with a straight face, he's like, if it comes down to point differential at the end of the season getting in the playoffs, like, I want the points. And I was like, you know what? Like, shit. Like, there's a lot of teams right there now.
That's like the 5th or 6th tiebreaker, point difference.
And he's like,
oh, I get it.
I mean, he might also had money on the game. Who knows? Which, no, he didn't. That's super illegal. But, yeah, I think the Rams are that. I mean, they're clearly better than Philly right now. I mean, that's not even arguable.
Yeah.
I mean, Dallas and Detroit, you want to argue, I guess? Sure.
So Philly's favored by 11 at home.
But think about this.
Arizona.
Detroit or Dallas go to Baltimore, they get rolled. Detroit did get rolled.
Yeah.
Dallas probably get rolled. Rams arguably could have won.
Eagles definitely.
Should have won.
Yeah.
I mean, shoot, Niners get rolled at home.
Baltimore's really good, and it took until Week 16 for everybody to go, hey, they actually are really good.
And I think part of it, too, is I think Sean McVay loves to coach. Like, Sean McVay had options to do anything other than this stressful ass job of coaching the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
He could have been married and like got paid like $20 million a year at least to do like TV. And he's like, no, I'm gonna come back and coach this team who before the season everyone thought was a borderline Caleb Williams destination.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, they look like the second best team in the NFC. You know what I don't think is crazy? A Rams like Browns Super Bowl.
I saw Rams Browns at SoFi a few
Yeah.
weeks ago. Who knew at the time that was a Super Bowl preview? Pretty wild. Let's talk about the last few games in the NFC here. So Arizona at Philly, Philly favored by 11. The Eagles were shaky as all hell on Monday on Christmas Day. That game against the Giants, where it was like, oh my God, when are they going to put them away? And they never did. They won by 8, but it was like Tyrod Taylor got the Giants down there to have one final throw from like the 25-yard line. Incredible how close that game was. We look at Atlanta or at Arizona plus 11 here as a possible bet, or is this one where we just kind of want to stay away and watch from afar?
I mean, I kind of like Arizona. I'm plus 11.
The gulf in talent on the rosters is huge, but also Philly has just not been the same the last 6 weeks. So I think this opened at 13.
I think sneaky thing, Jonathan Gannon coming back to coach against Philly.
To stick it to Philly.
I mean, like I'm not gonna say they're gonna win, but 11.
It also depends what type of
I think the gap is bigger with the Giants, and the Giants, I mean, took them to the last, Hail Mary where Philly decided to shove everyone out of bounds when the ball was in the air.
Mm-hmm. It also depends what type of transportation Arizona took to.
Oh yeah. God.
Oh my God! If they take a bus, yeah, maybe they'll win. Who knows? Pittsburgh at Seattle. Seattle's only favored by 3 at home against the Mason Rudolph-led Pittsburgh Steelers. Yes, the Steelers were great last week against Cincinnati. Rudolph was great, but I think the Seattle team really should put their foot down here. They're in the same position as the Rams. They just got to win their last 2 games and they're in. I really like Seattle -3 here. Are you worried at all about a Tomlin coach team ruining that for us?
Yeah. I am. I think for Minnesota and Green Bay, I think their only hope is Seattle. I mean, like I said, I think the Rams. I mean, they're number 1. I think they're good, and number 2 are really good, and number 2 they're playing the Giants this week, and I mean, if they win this, they're in, right?
They own the tiebreaker over Seattle, but they don't over the Vikings, just because their conference record. I think they're a game and a half behind us. So,
oh, interesting. Maybe not then.
Yeah, well, I mean, all they have to do is win that one, and then win against San Francisco, or get a Vikings loss somewhere in there, or get some combination of Packers and Saints losses and all this other stuff. But the Rams have the inside track. All they got to do is win their games, and I think they're going to win at least the first one. But you're making the point that Seattle favored by 3 here.
Mason Rudolph looked pretty decent Saturday.
So did Pickens after getting roasted by his coach.
Roasted by everybody. For that pathetic effort blocking. Yeah, I mean, I think Pittsburgh, I thought they were going to lose to the Bengals at home against, Jake Browning, but no, I mean, they took it to them and yeah, I mean, I guess Pittsburgh's still technically in it, aren't they?
Absolutely. I mean, they're tied for that final spot there with Indy and Houston and Cincinnati and all these teams. So pretty crazy situation that they're still alive, and Mike Tomlin's streak of winning seasons is still alive somehow. Cincinnati at Kansas City. Kansas City is only favored by 7. Sometimes I look at these like DraftKings look ahead lines. Like 3 weeks ago, this was Kansas City -13.5. It's all the way down to 7. Kansas City's been awful.
I'm shocked it's that high.
Yeah, isn't it strange that it's still even that high? I thought it would be lower than that. This is the Chiefs' lowest point in the Reed era, that loss last week against the Raiders, where both Mahomes and Kelsey threw sideline tantrums. Reed just doesn't seem the same without any star receivers anywhere, and Kelsey not playing up to his full potential. This is wild, man. The Chiefs suck.
Relative to their standard and their roster, they suck.
Yeah.
Like, they can't move the ball against the frickin' Raiders. Like, I want to give the Raiders some credit, like a lot of credit, obviously. But, I mean, they're not the 85 Bears on defense. And, I mean, it was like pick 6, fumble the exchange between Mahomes and running back. Like Kelsey looks like he's 53 years old, not 35, and absolutely no one on the outside keeps anyone up at night or catches the ball. So, yeah, I mean, they're lucky their division is a dumpster fire, like, or at least was. The Raiders aren't anymore. Now that they cleaned house of the Patriot people.
Mhm.
But like Denver is in shambles right now with just what they got going on with organization and quarterback, and the Chargers are the Chargers. So
They got dealt a massive break because this season they could have had a losing record. They could have, fallen to third or something in the division, but the division just took a shit as well. So it's like Denver was bad, Chargers were bad, the Raiders started out horribly. They have gotten away with it this year. I don't know if they get away with it in the future after Los Angeles.
there's no way there's no way they win a playoff game. I don't care who they're playing.
Yeah, I mean, and they're probably going to be either the 3 or the 4, so they're going to play, someone like Cleveland or Miami or Buffalo, and that's going to be really tough for them with the way they're not moving the ball. And then the last game of the weekend that we haven't discussed is Chargers-Denver. All I'll say here is the Broncos are who we thought they were. This is a good transition into Joey's Jack in the Bum of the Week. I got a few candidates for you here, but I think we all know where you're going. We'll start with Trevor Lawrence, who is the first ever guy to have a chance to get 3 Jack in the Bum of the Weeks. I'm putting him on the list again. He was awful in that game. They only put up 12 points at Tampa Bay. They were favored by 1.5 at Tampa Bay and lost 30-12. And he just got absolutely rolled in that game and had no hope. He was eventually pulled for Beathard in the fourth quarter. Nick Mullins, yes, he threw for 400 yards. 4 back-breaking picks. He is in the annals of Viking fan history as like one of our most hated players. He basically just tanked the last 2 games for us with his unbelievably loose play with the ball. My dad sent me a really funny AI-generated image of a kid getting a Mullins jersey for Christmas, and he's crying, and all the adults are laughing at him. I was like, fantastic. Vikings fans just cannot stand that guy. I appreciate his effort, but man, that really killed our season, those last 2 losses against Cincy and Detroit. So he's an option there. Reed and Mahomes, you got 2 Hall of Famers right there. We got to put them on the list. This is a low point for those 2 guys in Kansas City. I really think Reed, even throughout the whole Alex Smith era, was never looked at, quite the way he's being looked at right now. His offense sucks. They couldn't put up any points against a terrible Raiders defense, so tough for him. And then Mahomes, I mean, he's just not the same either. Yes, he's an incredible player, but this has been a disaster year for him, so he's on the list. And then sadly, for the first time ever, Brock Purdy is a nominee for Jack in the Bum of the Week with his own 4-pick performance. But you're going with another 2-time Jack in the Bum of the Week winner. Congratulations to you, our new Jack in the Bum of the Week. Who's it going to be?
Yeah, I mean, I really could have gone Brock Purdy, but maybe it's a little homer in me. But I also try not to put somebody just one bad game. You get bummer, unless you do something royally stupid. He just played bad. It wasn't like just the stupidest thing I've ever seen. But no, Jack in the Bum of the Week is Sean Payton and the Denver Broncos. As I think it's as an organization, because when I heard that they asked Russell Wilson to waive his, what was it? I think $37 million injury guarantee, like Halloween.
Mm-hmm.
That was 2 months ago.
So shady.
And like, just as a fan of sports, as a fan of, the way it, runs, essentially you get paid because you do well, you produce, like it's a, anyone can make any kind of money if you perform week after week.
It's a meritocracy.
Exactly. And to ask Russell Wilson to waive that when he's had a pretty decent, if not pretty good season.
24 touchdowns, 8 picks.
I'm looking at it now. It's 26.
26 and 8, yeah.
26 and 8. And I mean, his QBR is only, I think, according, I'm looking here, like 50.6 is 21st. Not the best, but what the hell does that stat even mean? And 26 and 8, and you're going to, like, I get it. The Raiders did it with Derek Carr last year, but Derek Carr, like, had no money, I think, left.
Mm-hmm.
And shoot, I mean, Derek Carr might have I mean, I don't think he wanted to leave, but I don't know. I mean, I think that was bad too. I just hate it. I hate it. Like you signed him, you signed the contract, you like did nothing really last year to like help him out. I thought like I mean he doesn't need to be coddled. Like I mean this is professional sports, but he obviously Russell Wilson. I mean one of the most just shit on athletes I've ever seen ever. Like for just a consistently long period of time,
Mm-hmm.
and he's bounced back. Like I don't know what's going on at the facility. Like maybe he still is just Mister like got to reach me through my manager, like all that shit, like that. Okay, Russ, that's got to stop if that's still going on. But I just hate it. I hate it because it's gonna probably start to become a trend now that it's happened 2 straight years. Clearly, like
And both times Jarrett Stidham, oddly enough.
you're right. Actually, yeah, yeah, you're right. What's he got on these?
He's got a
people?
good agent.
Yeah. Um, I don't know. I don't like it. I hate it. Um, I get it, as a as a fan. I mean, because if you are Denver and like you have maybe the same opinion as I do, like if he does get hurt and you can't cut him, you probably are like, why the fuck did we not just sit him?
Mhm.
But I don't know. I hate it. I think it's a bum move, bummy ass move for Sean Payton and the Denver Broncos.
Yeah, absolute tire fire organization right now. It's basically been since Kubiak left in 2015 after they won the Super Bowl. They haven't been able to find anything. Obviously, Nathaniel Hackett was awful. Vance Joseph in his first go around was really bad. Osweiler was bad. Wilson's trade has ended up being an absolute disaster. So the Broncos and Sean Payton, Jack in the bum of the week yet again. That's the second for Peyton, and this Broncos franchise is really in the shitter right now, and I don't see them getting out anytime soon.
I saw like somebody, it was like a meme popped up on like one of the shows I was watching, and it might have been McAfee's show, but it said, "Let's ride the bench."
Oh,
It's like,
poor Russ.
oh,
He never gets a break. I mean, the first 7 or 8 years of his career was he just had the horseshoe up the ass. Like everything good that could possibly happen to him always happened to him. But these last 2 years have been such a shit show. That Broncos organization is really making the end of his career quite a nightmare. Let's head over to the You Like That picks of the week. We went 4-1 last week. We went 3-1-1 the week before. We are back to winning ways on this pod. I'm really proud of that. And I think what's changed our fortunes is every week I get your input on 7 games and we whittle it down to 5 rather than just trying to pick the 5 right off the bat. So I'm going to give you 7 options here. I want you to take 2 away. I like Tampa Bay -2.5. I think you do too. Atlanta +3 at Chicago. That's just the thought of Chicago probably shouldn't be favored by 3 against many teams, much less a team that's still technically alive in the playoff race. Jacksonville -6 at home against Carolina. It's the worst team in football going against a desperate team, and they're on the road. I like Jacksonville there. Houston -3 at home against Tennessee. Again, I don't know why that line is only 3 with Stroud being back. So that one seems a little fishy, but I want to take it. Seattle -3 at home against Pittsburgh. Again, another one where I don't understand why that's 3. Obviously, the Seahawks are a better team than Pittsburgh, and Smith is back, and Rudolph is starting for the Steelers, so that was an odd one. And then the last 2 that I added just as we were recording, Baltimore -3. We both like Baltimore to win against Miami, and then Dallas -5.5. We both like them to win against Detroit. So of those 7, which 2 are jumping out to you as, hey, let's take that one off, and which ones are jumping out to you where you're like, oh, we got to have that one on there?
I don't know how I feel about, honestly, Atlanta, Jacksonville, Houston, and Seattle. Like I don't know whether I like them or not. I love Tampa, Baltimore, and Dallas.
Okay.
Like I think Baltimore, like minus, I think they're gonna kill Miami, and Dallas at home. I do. I don't think Detroit is as good. I think they're on a different tier than Dallas is.
What do we think about, so another couple options, Buffalo -12 at home against New England, and then Arizona +11 on the road against Philly. Do you like any of those better than Atlanta, Jacksonville, Houston, Seattle?
No, see, that's the thing. Not really.
So we definitely don't trust Atlanta. I'm going to take Atlanta off of there, and I'm going to replace that with Baltimore. I think that's just an obvious one with how well Baltimore's played to this point this season. So we'll put Baltimore in there. So then, obviously, we're going to take Dallas minus 5.5 because we both like that one. Do we take out Seattle, Houston, or Jacksonville? I say probably. What do you think?
I was going to say Jacksonville.
Me too. Let's take out Jacksonville. We just can't trust Trevor in big games. So we're going to switch that
Is he
out.
legitimately, number one, are they going to play well? And number two, is he going to finish the game?
Yes. Is he healthy enough to play in the first place? Is he going to finish the game? Are the Jaguars just not a very good team and we overrated them based on their performance in the playoff games last year? Okay, I like that. I like that we whittled off a couple of teams there and we added a couple of really good teams at Baltimore and Dallas. So here's the You Like That picks for week 17 in the NFL. We're 43, 33, and 4. So a nice 10-game over 500 season so far. We went 4-1 last week. Here's 5 more winners for you. Tampa Bay minus 2.5 at home against New Orleans. Baltimore minus 3 at home against Miami. Dallas minus 5.5 at home against the Lions. Houston minus 3 also at home against Tennessee. And then Seattle minus 3 at home against Pittsburgh, going with 5 home teams to get us into the new year with some wins. Joey, it's time for your Feels Great Baby, your wildest take you feel best about currently. And we started off the podcast talking about Joe Flacco, and here we go again.
I feel pretty great about the Cleveland Browns and making at least the AFC Championship game. I think them and Baltimore, in my opinion, are the 2 best teams in the AFC. I think if the Browns played Kansas City, Miami, I would, if Buffalo really did finish hot and win the division, Buffalo might be playing like up to their potential, but consistently the Browns on both sides of the ball have been really good.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot like the NFC with the Rams. I think I was thinking if I had to pick a Final Four right now, it would probably be Baltimore, Cleveland, and the Niners and Rams.
Which is crazy. I mean, obviously that'll be really tough to happen because
I have to look at like the like path to get there.
Right, because it's very unlikely that Cleveland and the Rams would make it and play the 1 seed in the championship because they probably have to play the 1 seed in the second round. But even so, you're saying those are the teams right now based on their current form that you would want to pick for the Final Four. Because I think I would swap out.
You're right. Honestly, the more I think about it, the only way the Rams would not play the Niners again, this is so hard to say because it's assuming the Niners get the 1 seed, which still, like, with a loss on Christmas, a long way away. I mean, I think they beat Washington, but if they have to beat the Rams, like, I don't know, like.
I mean, here's the other thing, too. If they lose to the Rams and say Philly wins out or Detroit wins out, this is insane. But if they lose to the Rams and they fall to the 2 seed, they're almost certainly going to play the Rams in the first round. So that would be a nightmare scenario. Because if they play Seattle, they'll be favored.
If the Niners played Seattle, they would hammer Seattle.
Exactly. They'll be favored by double digits at least. If they played the Vikings, if they played the Packers, if they played the Saints, the Falcons, whoever.
I mean, literally, honestly, I swear, like, as a Niner fan, I saw this, like, as a someone did, like, the Niners blog. People did like, who would you least rather face? And, like, if I had an answer, I would not want to see the Rams.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think the Niners end up getting the 1 seed. As much as I think the Rams are good, I think the Rams probably equally would like to see anyone but the Niners.
Right.
Just the way.
And the point of your take here was that Cleveland is the Rams of the AFC. You think
essentially,
basically whoever they play in both the first and the second round, they're going to be worried.
Yeah. I mean,
they probably play the AFC South winner in the first one, so Jacksonville, Indy, or Houston. And then in the second one, they would probably play Baltimore unless there was another upset. And then they would play either.
Because if the Niners get the 1 seed,
then the Rams
Like if
would
the Rams,
probably be
just forget seeds wise.
Yeah.
If the Rams played either Detroit or Philly, I would put my house on the Rams.
and
You
they
think
will
about
be
this?
underdogs in that
You
game.
think
Which
you
will
think
be
about
cool.
this? Matthew Stafford going to Detroit
To
in a
ruin their
playoff
first
game?
home playoff game in 30 years. Oh my God. Oh, that would be devastating for Lions fans if that happened. And I feel terrible for him. I mean, we lost last week. It was devastating for the Vikings, but I also was like, hey, Detroit hasn't hosted a playoff game
I
in
love
30
Dan
years.
Campbell, but Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay going up against Jared Goff playing the Rams though too.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, that's kind of juicy, a little zesty.
Yeah. It'd be a lot better than like Seattle being in that spot or the Vikings being in that
But my
spot.
point is, if the Niners do get the 1 seed, like for them to not play the Rams, like Seattle or Minnesota would have to upset like
Philly or
Philly.
Detroit. Yeah. Then
Which, to be honest,
that's the dream scenario for me is we somehow win the next 2 weeks and then we play either Detroit or Philly and win that one. And then, oh my God, we play the Niners.
I mean, Seattle just did beat Philly.
Right. Buffalo should have beat Philly. Dallas stomped Philly. Like the Giants almost beat Philly. By the way, Washington almost beat Philly twice. Like even in their wins, they're unconvincing. So the point you're making here is this is a topsy-turvy season, right?
I think the Vikings could get there still, but if they played especially, I think the Vikings, the last team they'd want to play would be Philly.
Mm-hmm.
Just because like out in the cold, I don't. Because like, is it going to be Nick Mullins? Is it going to be I don't.
It's going to be Jaron Hall, and he's a rookie out of BYU.
Well, yeah, I guess if they made it, that means he plays well.
Yeah.
The next 2 weeks. So yeah, it would be him.
But your Final Four, you would have Cleveland in
right now. Yeah. Well, see that I guess it's a power ranking because they probably wouldn't be my Final Four. Is my point, I guess, based on the route.
Mm-hmm.
Because more than likely, if the Niners get the 1 seed in the Rams, they'd play in the divisional round, and like
the tough matchup,
I'd pick the Niners, but I would it'd be a tough ass game.
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing in the AFC, like Baltimore would have to play Cleveland probably in the divisional round. And
Flacco at Baltimore,
and if I'm Baltimore, like congratulations, maybe Lamar potentially wins his second MVP, 1 seed, and it's like. Remember, like in 2019, the big bad Titans came into Baltimore and just pushed them around.
Yeah, they were 14-2, and Lamar won the MVP.
Is a tough ass. Yeah, exactly. I think the last team they'd want to play would be like division opponent. Those games are always weird. You play them 3 times,
and you see your greatest ever.
I think when they beat Cleveland, I think it was like PJ Walker.
Yeah.
So you don't think Joe Flacco's kept up at night? Like doesn't even want to see his wife and kids at home because he's so focused on beating Baltimore in the playoffs.
I keep seeing these TikToks and these Instagram reels that are like memes, and it's like all these quarterbacks doing their handshake after the game, and they're like, hey, good game, but you got to be worried about him. And then the next one, they're like, it shows like Dak and Kirk. Then the next one, it shows like Trevor and Mahomes, and then it shows whoever. And they're all like, hey, good game, but you got to be worried about him. And then when you finally get to the final slide, it just shows Flacco with a beard looking into the camera ominously. I'm like, he's back. He's elite. Like, I cannot believe this. And if he wins that first playoff game and then goes at Baltimore, that is going to be one of the great stories in the NFL in recent times. Like a guy coming out of retirement, 38, Super Bowl MVP quarterback, and then he plays against his former team in the playoffs.
I think they said on the broadcast today he's 39 like tomorrow.
Yeah, and he's threw for 300 plus yards and 3 touchdowns tonight. They won 37-20. They're on freaking fire. There's Joey's Feels Great Baby. Cleveland makes the AFC Championship at least. Unbelievable. Let's close the pod. I want to do some New Year's resolutions for our favorite teams and even the sport itself if you want. So I want to say, so for you, it's, the Sharks and the Niners. For me, it's the A's, the Vikings, Tottenham Hotspur, my soccer team, and then the Sharks as well. Like, what do we want to see as a New Year's resolution for those teams? I'll give you the floor for the Sharks, obviously, because you know way better than me. But if you could say, hey, I want Greer and the ownership of the Sharks to just make a New Year's resolution, what would it be? Would it just be
how crazy is this? Like anything?
Anything. I mean, we're setting the goals high. I'm going to try to lose 30 pounds next year. Let's see what go pie in the sky. What would you want them to do if you were in charge?
Well, since you use pie in the sky and we're using corporate business terms that make me want to blow my head off, let's go for some low-hanging fruit.
Oh.
And let's get the number one pick.
Let's do the needful.
Yep. Let's get the number one pick. Let's start with that. I'd like to have Joe's number retired. I think that's kind of simple. Like maybe like one game, have some juice. As for the team, sell absolutely everyone who makes any sort of money on the team at the deadline. Bigger. Let's go pie in the sky. Hire somebody outside the organization who doesn't have any ties to Team Teal who can maybe give like an honest assessment of like where this roster is, because this country club atmosphere, like frat boy thing we're running here in San Jose, where like every single person employed or has anything to do with the team is like in the brotherhood, and we all just like to pat each other on the back. Like I think Mike Greer is a solid guy. I think he's done some decent things. I think he's done some not so decent things. But I never was fully on board with him just for the sole purpose of like, I was desperately wanted some guy who like had no ties to the Sharks. Like I got it just
new coach on the list too.
To be honest, the one positive thing I say, like this team, like I haven't watched like every game and like let alone like every minute of the games I've watched, but I can say they play hard. And I think they're playing better than their talent, which is saying something because they're like 9-26. I think he's done a decent job. Do I think he's the answer? No, but I think he's done about as good as you can do with this team. More importantly, I think it's the top. I mean, if I really wanted, I'm hesitant to say like new ownership, like somebody who is more involved, more around the team, more like just somebody who probably is not afraid to hire people outside. But it's hard to tell somebody to stop owning a sports team like that. It's like that's yeah, so that'd probably be it.
Okay, for me, for the A's, obviously at the top would be for Fisher to sell the team, but it seems like that's not going to happen.
Obviously, number one is for John Fisher to take a long walk off a short bridge.
Yes, that would be number one, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen. I would say finalize this 4-year extension at the Coliseum so Oakland fans can have 4 more years, and maybe we can see one more contending team. That Vegas stadium is not going to open until 2029. As of right now, it looks like the A's are trying to find alternate sites within the Bay Area to play for those 3 years because their TV deal stipulates they have to be in the Bay Area or they make no money. They void the contract and thus would lose like $150 million over those 3 years. A lot of rumors bouncing around that they're going to play possibly in Sacramento at Raleigh Field, possibly at AT&T Park in San Francisco, which is like an absolute slap in the face to the people of Oakland.
That is also maybe a logistical tire fire.
Absolutely. How are you going to play, whatever that ends up being, 162 home games between
the A's double headers, like Giants in the morning, A's at night?
Yeah, so the whole reason that they're looking at those options is they have burned the bridge with Oakland to the absolute max. But my New Year's resolution for the A's would be find a way, if you're going to leave, if you're going to be just the total assholes that you are, find a way to get 4 more years in Oakland. And then, yes, move to Vegas and adios. And leave the A's name in Oakland. Go be the Las Vegas Gamblers, whatever you want to be. Rename the team, move on. Give us 4 more years. That would be my New Year's resolution for the A's. And then for the Vikings, I'll do one quick one here. I think you got to surround Kevin O'Connell with whatever he needs. I think if we can keep Flores around, I think he's done an unbelievable job in the face of adversity this season. I think we have basically all the tools in terms of coaching and like young talent to be able to win a Super Bowl. We just need to improve, I guess, drafting skill position guys like running backs, tight ends, because we haven't hit on those. We've had to trade for guys and lost draft capital to get guys like Hawkinson. We traded for Cam Akers. I guess my New Year's resolution for the Vikings would be hit on draft picks and surround Kevin O'Connell with what he needs, because I think he's the guy. We've seen this year. He can coach an offense up. It doesn't matter who the quarterback is. He motivates the team. The team loves to play for that guy. He made the absolute best hire he could have possibly made for the defensive coordinator, complement his offense. I believe in Kevin O'Connell. I believe in Brian Flores. I believe this team can win the Super Bowl in the next few years if we play the quarterback decision right, and if we hit on some draft picks, especially at running back and pass rusher and whatnot. So I would say hit on those draft picks and surround O'Connell with what he wants. And then, do you have any for the Niners as a parting shot?
Here's a good one: win the Super Bowl.
I love
That'd
it.
Be nice.
That'd be nice.
Big picture. Like kind of what you're saying. I think they really I think Steve Wilkes is a little rocky start there to begin with, but I think he's done a pretty good job with the adjustments with the defense since the bye, especially on the back secondary. But yeah, we need to invest in the offensive line. That was what I was going to say. Trent Williams, who knows how long he keeps playing, if at all. And then, shoot. Aaron Banks is now hurt. He's solid offensive lineman. Not probably won't ever make a Pro Bowl, but he's good. The center and to the right tackle will just get abused when they play good teams, good defenses. They're solid. They can they run the blocking schemes Kyle likes to run, pretty solid against decent to or average to below average defenses. But when we Baltimore, I think Colton McKivitz played 2 or 3 positions on the offensive line on Christmas Day and gave up 9 pressures. Yeah, I would say invest heavily in the draft in the offensive line. Don't do it in free agency. We got no money.
Yeah,
but
number one, just win, baby.
Just win the Super Bowl. I don't care. If you do that, I won't care about anything else. Draft a punter in the first round for all I care. Hey, we have a first round pick again. That's nice.
Yeah, use it on a kicker and cut Jake Moody. Who gives a shit? If you win the Super Bowl, you don't give a good goddamn.
Draft a mascot. Yeah.
Just win, baby. So that's Joey's resolution for the Niners. Thanks, everybody, for listening again throughout 2023. This is our last episode of the year. We'll be back after week 17, after the new year. We're going to come to you on, I believe it's Monday, which is New Year's Day. All the NFL games are either on Saturday or Sunday. There is no Monday night the rest of the year, so we'll be on after the conclusion of the Vikings-Packers Sunday night tilt, and we'll have that for you dropping on Monday. Thanks, everybody who listens and comments and watches our videos on TikTok and YouTube and whatnot. Always appreciate you guys. If you want to send in any questions or anything to us, please do so. We'd love to incorporate that into the pod. Everybody who's gotten us podcast related stuff for Christmas presents and all that, we're thankful to everybody who listens and who supports us as we continue to record these episodes and send them out to our maybe dozens of fans now. It's no longer 7. We're in the dozens. So we're really proud of it. Thanks everybody for listening. We'll be back again in the new year. Happy 2024 from the You Like That Feels Great Baby podcast.